Welcome to this video on price discrimination for the IB Economics course. This is a third of 3 videos. If you missed video 1 and 2, there are links to the video in the description, or they should be showing up here on the screen there now if you want to watch them first. If not, this video what we're going to look at is going to look at drawing a diagram that illustrates how the firm maximises profit in third degree price discrimination. So firstly, what is third degree price discrimination? Well, that's basically based on the idea that different consumers have different price elasticity of demand for a product. So what a firm does, it separates the consumers into different groups or different markets based on their price elasticity demand for the product. So what I want you to think about now are examples of third degree price discrimination that might exist. Pause the video there now, and when you're ready with a few ideas, move on then. Press play then. Okie doke. I've assumed you've paused it and now you've pressed play, and let's see what we have as a few examples. Well, there's our cinemas and museums. They charge different prices based on the age of the guests. So, for example, children and students have a lower price, as do old age pensioners compared to adults. Why? Because children, students and OAPs have a different price elasticity demand to adults. Airlines also charge different prices based on a few factors. For example, the time of the flight you're flying at, when you book your flight, where you book your flight. Restaurants often have cheaper menus during the week. They have longer early bird menus for midweek customers. Why? Because consumers are more likely to go for a meal at the weekend, so therefore their PED, price elasticity demand, is different to those that get food during the week. Hotels also often offer discounts for midweek breaks as well. Why? Because the PED for consumers there is different too. For more examples of price discrimination, have a look at video number 2 in this series. So, the assumption we have underlying all the examples is that one set of consumers has a higher PED than another group. For example, businesses travelling business class have a low price elasticity demand, as they have to travel for their job. So if they've got a meeting to go to, they have to travel at that specific time. However, someone choosing to visit a friend abroad would generally travel economy and generally have a higher PED. They're more flexible and don't have to travel at a specific time. So they're going to go when the price of plane tickets are cheaper. So now we're going to move on to the profit maximising part for third degree price discrimination. We assume we have 2 consumer groups or markets for a product in this example, and we're going to distinguish these 2 groups based on the price elasticity demand. Both of these consumer groups have different demand curves, as are shown in the diagrams here. Market 1, as you can see, has a relatively steep demand curve, okay, and market 2 here has a far less steep demand curve, okay. So as you can see, we've got 2 different prices here. We've got P1 and a lower price of P2 here. Now, market 1 we can say is relatively low PED and charges price 1, so it's relatively inelastic or reasonably unresponsive. Market 2 is a relatively high PED and charges P2, lower price. Why? Because in the second market, the demand is more responsive. So, now what we have to do is we need to combine the marginal revenue curves of both market 1 here and market 2 here in order to get the combined firm's curve of 2 marginal revenue curves. As you can see, we take the marginal revenue curve of the top bit of market 1 here, and the marginal revenue curve then for the lower part of the second one, gives us the entire marginal revenue curve for the entire firm. So, let's remember from before, our profit maximising rule of marginal revenue equals marginal cost still applies. The firm's diagram, combining the 2 markets, has one marginal cost curve. Why is this? Because the firm has the same cost for both consumer groups, and that goes back to what we said in the very first video, that there is no significant difference in price between the firms. Between the markets, so that the firm is experiencing the same costs, it just charges different prices based on the consumer characteristics, not because of a change in costs experienced by the firm. So, in our market, in the firm's diagram here, where we've got our kinked marginal revenue curve and our one single marginal cost curve, we need to find now the profit maximising point. How do we do this? Well, we find the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is at this point here. From this, we drop down to find our output there of Q3. Now, as we can see there fairly simply. Now, what we need to do now is with this output of Q3, that has to be divided across our two consumer groups or two consumer markets. Consumer market 1 and consumer market 2 as we have it here. The firm does this by making the marginal cost curve relate to each consumer group. So, what we've done here, okay, we have a very simple idea that our marginal costs has to equal marginal revenue. That's shown here in the market 1 and 2 diagram for the firm down here. But we know, therefore, the marginal revenue has to be equal to marginal revenue 2 and marginal revenue 1. How do we go about doing this? By plotting our three diagrams horizontally in a nice little line that we have here below, down here, we can sketch a line from the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue in the firm's diagram, which I'm indicating here with my red dot. And we just basically plot this line across, and we can see where it hits our marginal revenue curve 2 here, and our marginal revenue curve 1 here. From this, we can determine the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue 2 and marginal revenue 1. So looking here at my market 1, I can see where the point where it hits my marginal cost curve 1. So that gives me my Q1 for this particular market. And therefore, I can also determine the price 1 as well. In my second market here, I can see where it hits marginal revenue curve 2. So I therefore determine my Q2 and also determine my second price there. All this we derive from my original marginal cost equals marginal revenue curve there for the entire firm. So, a couple of important points to remember. Q1, given here for the first consumer group, plus Q2 for my second consumer group, when I combine them gives me Q3, which is the total output for the entire firm. A higher price of P1 is charged for consumers with relatively inelastic demand or has low PED, and a lower price is charged of P2 for the consumers with a relatively elastic demand or a high PED. The third degree price discrimination results in higher profits for the firm. If they didn't give higher profits for the firm, then the firm quite simply wouldn't engage in price discrimination because there'd be no point to. So folks, I've now shown you how a firm maximises profit in third degree price discrimination using a diagram. Hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please ask them below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. And sure, why not subscribe to the channel as well? Sure, if you watch this far in the video, you may as well for more amazingly, fantastically interesting content just like this one here. Anyway, folks, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you again. You'll be watching another video again soon. Best of luck. Have a wonderful day. See you now. Bye-bye.